fights with passion, and he inspires.
Are you ready for a war?
All right, welcome back to From 8 Arbitration. I told you I was going to have the man on, Charlie Miller, and I've got him. He's going to talk a little bit about fear mongering, which is going on like crazy right now with the prospect of this tentative agreement being shot down. You see a lot of people coming out within the executive council, MBAs, a lot of branch presidents right now trying to scare people into accepting this TA, talking about arbitration. Don't want to go there. Don't want to go to arbitration because we could lose everything. We could lose our COLAs and our step increases, our firstborn child. And if you got any dogs or cats, they may take that away too. And so Charlie's going to come on. He's going to talk a little bit about that. And we'll discuss some other things along the way. But Charlie, you with me, brother?
I'm here.
All right, my man. I'm going to let you have it. But just to try to quell everybody's anxiety about going to arbitration, you wanted to come on and talk to everybody. So it's all yours, my brother. How about it?
Thank you, sir. Before I get into the issues about arbitration, you know, there's a real question out there as to what our union should be like. And I want to tell you a story about me. You know, I got out of the Marine Corps in 1980. I had a dream of making $1,000 a month. I was certain that all my financial problems would be solved. At the time, I was a sergeant in the Marine Corps, and then the best year that I had while I was in the service was $9,000. That year, I got out and went to work for the post office as a letter carrier. I made $17,000 my first year. The average wage in America at the time was $12,500. Top pay as a letter carrier was $20,300. There was a $3,000 difference between top salary and bottom salary. I was doing so well. In 1981, I bought my first new car. In 1982, I bought my first home. I was living a dream. It took me 8 years to reach top salary. By then, top salary was $28,000. The average wage in America at the time was $19,200. This was the NALC that I knew. After several terms as a full-time officer, I retired in 2010 and went to work as a national level arbitration advocate. I can tell you that the average wage today in America is $61,000 a year. Starting wage at the Postal Service as a letter carrier, career letter carrier, is $45,000. A $9,000 difference between the average wage in America and what a letter carrier starts out. Now remember, when I started out, I made more than the average wage. There's also a $30,000 difference between top salary and bottom salary. Today we have letter carriers making less than fast food workers. Starting wages are so low that letter carriers can't afford the $225 per pay period biweekly premiums for the union's health care plan. TSP contributions are at all-time low because carriers can't afford the $5 or the 5% make the contributions towards TSP. Rents are so high and wages are so low that that entry-level letter carriers can't afford the basic benefits that the Postal Service has to offer. That was the reason why everyone went to work for the post office. It was for the benefits. Fact is that a sergeant in the Marine Corps drawing BAQ and BAF making more money than an entry-level letter carrier today. 1981, then President Vince Sombrado, had us primed to go out on strike at the Postal Service implemented a two-tier pay package. The Postal Service believed them, and they backed off. We were a strong, united union, young and old, newly hired veteran carriers. We were all together. Today is a much different story. We ratify contracts with two-tier pay structures. Back in the day when we didn't have an internet, during contract negotiations, we had an 800 number that we could call into and get updates on a weekly basis. We would come together and show support for our bargaining team. We would have demonstrations, and we'd let the public know what we were after, and we were successful. That's how come we maintained our high standard of living at the time. We understood what the stakes were in the negotiations. In the 90s, we had a campaign. Everybody knew what we were trying to get. Harder work for higher wages. And we were finally successful in 1999 when arbitrator Fleshley awarded us higher wages because he recognized that letter carrier work was harder. Today, we're kept in the dark. Rallies are discouraged. Misleading promises that are made, such as historic agreements. Months ago at the National Convention, we were told we were only hours away. Then it became soon. Soon, the contract's coming soon. Finally, when it arrived, the Postal Service got the jump on the NALC and released what the contract was. When Todolo's letter got around, everyone thought that the 1.3 was a farce, that this had to be fake. This is not what the union agreed to. Sadly, it's what it was. Even the bump that the lower step letter carriers are getting, the two-step bump, doesn't keep pace with the cost of inflation. Rents nationwide have gone up 3.8%. If you're in a high cost of living metro area, it's gone up as much as 8.5%. USPS healthcare costs have gone up 10% this year alone. The entire value of the 3.9% pay increase that was tentatively put before us has already exceeded 2024 costs. We need better, we deserve better, and it's why concerned letter carriers are encouraging you to vote no on this contract. Just what is the value of the tentative agreement? It's hard to tell you because every time President Renfro talks about it, there's a different set of numbers that come up. The NALC just put out a wage calculator that conflicts with the numbers that President Renfro is espousing. But put all the numbers aside. Here's the real test. And it can be done in terms that you all understand. Last contract, the term of the agreement gave us a 4.8% increase. Is your life better today with that 4.8% increase than it was in 2019? And you got to ask yourself a question: is a 3.9% increase going to improve your life at all for the next couple of years? Even the top end of the wage scale is coming up short. Right now, the APWU has exceeded what letter carriers make. They're in the lead at the bottom end of our pay scale. At the top end of the pay scale, they're closely behind. They are currently in negotiations right now. It is very feasible that they could get an agreement that would exceed what a letter carrier is currently making. So what happens if we go to arbitration? How's it work and what's at risk? How's it work? It's a semi-formal process where we have a neutral arbitrator and two partisan arbitrators. The Postal Reorganization Act plays a significant role in setting the standard for wages, and it requires letter carriers, postal workers, to be paid at a comparable rate to those in private industry. There's no caveat in that says only when the Postal Service is making a profit or only when the Postal Service can afford it. When Congress passed the Postal Reorganization Act, they also gave the Postal Service the ability through the Postal Rate Commission to set its rates and to set the rates contingent upon its cost. And that would include its labor cost. It makes no difference if the Postal Service is making a profit or not. The Postal Reorganization and Congress's intent was that the Rate Commission would raise the rates to cover the cost. How are they going to cover the cost of this current 1.3% increase per year? They're going to raise the rates a few cents. Do you know what it's going to cost them if we get a 5% or 10% or 20% increase in our wages? They just raise the rate a few more cents. It's cents. That's all it is, the difference between us having a decent wage, a wage that we deserve, than where our own letter carriers are making fast food, NALC members making fast food wages, and the APW getting paid more than our entry-level carriers. The arbitration process has to take that in consideration. That's the fundamental thing that they look at. In addition, in 1999, arbitrator Fleischle determined that letter carriers the work was much more arduous for a letter carrier and that they deserved higher pay. And in his national level award, he recognized that and mandated that letter carriers receive a higher level. What else comes into play? What other considerations that are out there is that there's no justification for an NALC member to make fast food wages. There's no justification that NALC members qualify for public assistance or have to live out of their car. Wages are so low that letter carriers cannot afford its own union's health care. If they get a cheaper health care plan, they stand a chance of going bankruptcy because of the high deductibles on these plans. In my view, we have a very strong case for arbitration. After the evidence is submitted to the arbitrators, the hearings adjourn and the arbitrators meet. The neutral arbitrator generally makes one last attempt to try to get the parties to settle through the other two partisan arbitrators. That's kind of a thumbnail on how things work. Now, what are the true risks of losing the COLA? Because that's the popular thing that's being bandied about right now. This is not the first time we've gone to arbitration. We've gone to arbitration many times in the past, and we've never lost our COLA. Never. Nothing is without risks. There's a risk in driving to work. There's a risk in walking across the street. And there's a risk of flying off to some far-off vacation destination. Each activity, you assess what the risks are and justify whether or not it's acceptable. Compared to the other activities that we mentioned, the mortality rate of arbitration is pretty low. So some real questions appear here. What is the real level of risk? Are the COLAs at risk? It's unlikely. In my almost 40 years as an arbitration advocate, I can tell you that the level of risk in going to arbitration today is as low as it is as you driving to work. There's a risk, but our ultimate goal is a living wage for all letter carriers is an acceptable risk to take the case forward. In my view, that the real risk here is voting yes on this contract. If we continue to ratify contracts with a 1-point-something pay increase, management will take that as our demonstrated performance and will always offer us nothing less than future rounds of negotiations. We'll be stuck on a regular wash, rinse, and repeat of a 1 point something, 1.1, 1.3, 1.5. We'll never get off the ones. There's absolutely no other reason, no reason at all for letter carriers not to make an adequate wage and to qualify for a public assistance. The NALC is in need, a desperate need of a course correction. You have the helm. The rudder is not frozen in place. If you get out and vote this contract down, let it go to arbitration. It is worth the risk. That's my advice. That's how I see it. It's not political for me. I'm not running for any office. I'm just giving an honest opinion.
Charlie, here's my thing, and I could be wrong. I've not dealt with national level arbitrations. He said he's dealt with several. Even though he did this one by himself, he didn't let the executive council participate at any point. Initially, they have their own meetings where they have different portions of the contract they talk about, but he handled 100% of this on his own, and he acknowledged that in Houston when the guy pressed him on it, made him answer yes or no. He didn't want to do that and finally had to answer yes. He handled this on his own. I think that Tolino took advantage of a rookie. Tolino's a very smart individual who's handled a lot of things for the Postal Service. And I think that he took advantage of a rookie, and we'll talk about that in another edition or another episode. But I would expose the Postal Service when they continue to come out saying they've lost all these billions. I would encourage that conversation. He's terrified of it when he talks about we can't go to arbitration with them losing billions and ask for a raise. That's I forgot the exact terminology he used, but almost like that's asinine. That makes no sense. Going to arbitration and asking for these raises and the Postal Service is losing billions. I would have to challenge the Postal Service to prove it that you're losing billions. And how are you losing billions? Here's the problem with their argument. The top 700 individuals that work for the Postal Service make from $550,000 to $200,000. That's 700 individuals. Tolino makes 550, I think. If the post office sucks so bad and we're doing so bad, what are they doing? What's their job? Obviously, they're failing at their job. If we're paying 700 people, the top 700, from 200,000 all the way up to 550,000, the carriers are just delivering. That's all we do. We deliver what comes in, we deliver it. We have nothing to do with anything up top. Why are we paying all these people if the Postal Service is doing so bad? I would have to expose all of that. I want to get in those books. I've talked about that. I want to get in those finances. And I'm going to expose the shit out of the Postal Service. Obviously, we're not doing. Go ahead.
Well, let me talk about the higher levels of postal management. All you have to do is to go on the Postal Service's webpage about who their executives are. You have one person on the executive panel of the Postal Service who came up through the ranks. The majority of those people are all lobbyists for various mailing industry, for the multi-trillion-dollar e-commerce industry. They're all lobbyists for a particular industry. And when you're dealing with literally millions of packages going through the mail a day from various platforms, I'm a small business person myself. When I retired from the Postal Service, I have a collectibles business. And I use the USPS almost exclusively for one reason and one reason alone. The cost is much cheaper. Not by a few cents, but in dollars. I save dollars by using the Postal Service. If the Postal Service would just raise its rates on its small packages, we do over 2.5 million small packages per day. Or, excuse me, let me rephrase that. 2,500,000 small packages per day through the Postal Service. If you multiply that out, then that's over $1 billion if you just raise the rates a few cents. So you have these lobbyists in the executive branch of the Postal Service that intentionally keep the rates low to increase the profits for these e-commerce companies. They keep the rates low intentionally. This is turning into a government subsidy for another big business. It's corporate welfare. If you don't believe me, do your own research. You can only draw one conclusion why they hire so many lobbyists. The other thing is, as I said before, there is no caveat whatsoever in the Postal Reorganization Act about whether or not we're making money or we're losing money. Whatever our comparable wage should be, and there's a significant difference. UPS, the company itself said that the average UPS worker, their total wage and benefit package is $145,000 a year. The total wage and benefit package for a letter carrier is $71,000 a year. Where is the comparability there? When you're looking at FedEx and Amazon, they don't lag that far behind us. So we are not making a comparable wage. That's what the Postal Reorganization Act requires us to make. When Winfro brags about his previous experiences in negotiation, let's not forget that his previous experiences in negotiations was another 1-point-something pay increase, was a 2-tier pay system, was Diet Colas. Those are his experiences in negotiation. That's where we're at today. That's what's causing our people to be in poverty, having to apply for government assistance. That's his level of experience. Now, don't ask me why we didn't see that coming. All right, a mistake was made. All we can do as a union, and let me say this too, because this is important. People are trying to make a case that because we oppose the contract that we're tearing apart the union. Renfro is not the union. The people at 100 Indiana Avenue is not the union. It's the people who put on the blues every day and shows up on the workroom floor and does the job. These are the same people that went out and risked their lives during the pandemic to make deliveries. These are the same people after a community has a natural disaster, whether it be flood, hurricane, earthquake, fires, tornadoes, whatever. They're the first people that the public sees. Generally, the day after the tragedy occurs, they're back on their routes making the delivery. And the thing is this, if their power's off, our power's off. If their water's off, our water's off. If their homes were destroyed or damaged, so were ours, but we're still out there serving the public. We deserve better than a 1.3% pay increase.
Well, I agree. I think that we should be everywhere telling them we're not being paid because the Postal Service is losing billions because of their incompetence. I don't know why our president has bought into this. They're losing billions. You know, we can't do anything. Everywhere he goes, anytime I see him, just like on the Valley Labor Report, when he was on that, telling them, well, you know, they're losing billions. He's an advocate for the Postal Service right now, and they're losing billions. And so, to me, if I'm the head of the union, I'm going to say I'm tired of hearing about these son of a bitches losing billions every damn year. Fix that shit. But like you said, that ain't got nothing to do with me and my people. You need to pay my people a living wage so they don't have to live in their cars, so they don't have to have union halls putting in showers so they can take showers, so they don't have to be on government assistance. Fix y'all shit, but you're going to pay my people a living wage regardless of that, like you just said. There was a guy today that told me that his CCAs were quitting and going and working at Aldi's for $23 an hour. Aldi's, a grocery store. And we got CCAs, their increase was $1. And I don't know if he was on that Zoom, but what I was telling them was, here's Renfro and Jacksonville talking about, if we don't have an all-career workforce, it's a non-starter. If we don't have an all-career workforce, it's a non-starter for me. We'll go straight to arbitration. Then in Biloxi, he goes down there to our regional training, and he's starting to back up a little bit. Well, if we do have a contingent of CCAs, they're going to have substantial wages starting out. So we've kind of backtracked off of all-career workforce. They're going to have substantial raises. They got $1. $1. And on that Zoom, I told them, and I looked this up to make sure I was accurate, but 1 cup of premium roast coffee at McDonald's is 99 cents. So my president didn't even think my CCAs were worth a fucking cup of coffee when he negotiated their raises. To me, just quit talking. Quit bloviating. Quit telling everybody it's going to be historic. It's going to be, you're going to have all these big raises and shit. You knew all along that wasn't going to be the case. And here's this shit you're going to pile on us and tell us to eat it. You starved us for fucking long. Now you're going to have people say, hey, fuck, we've been without this contract for 500 and some days. You know, I'm going to have to just vote yes, just so I can get this lump sum. And so, you know, fuck everything else.
I don't look at people as much as CCAs or PTFs or Table 1, Table 2. I look at them as NALC members.
Yes.
And an NALC member deserves to make a living wage.
Right.
An NALC member shouldn't have to apply for public assistance. An NALC member shouldn't have to live out their car. An NALC member should be able to afford their own union's health care package. An NALC member should be able to afford to put money away in TSP for their future when they retire. That's not what we have here. That's not the contract that we have. You know, a lot's been said, a lot of allegations and stuff that are bandied about President Renfro. And, you know, I don't really think that he's a management plant and all that. That's kind of popular mythology in my view. But I think that we're all products of our environment. We all learn by our own life experiences. And growing up in Hattiesburg, Mississippi, which is, you know, Mississippi is one of the poorest states in the Union. You can go on Zillow right now and see that you can still get a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house in Hattiesburg for between $150,000 and $250,000. Most people, their commute to the post office is 10, 15 minutes, maybe. There ain't no massive traffic jams. They don't have to sit and commute 40 and 50 and 60 miles like a lot of carriers in a metro area because they can't afford to live in the communities that they deliver in. Our cost of living is significantly higher than it is in Hattiesburg. He leaves Hattiesburg and he goes to work for the business agent's office for a cup of coffee in Louisiana, which is not a whole lot different with regard to the economics. And then he gets to Washington, D.C. and starts making $150,000, $200K a year. And he thinks everybody else makes that kind of money and lives like that. You don't. Most people are suffering to get by. I've talked to so many letter carriers who have families that are living in 1-bedroom apartments and they can barely afford to make the rent. Some of them have to choose between putting gas in the car and buying food for dinner. So, you know, it's a different world for a lot of people. And, you know, I know this is a hot button issue across the country. All right, but I'm not just pleading for letter carriers in metro areas for a area wage or anything. I'm pleading for all letter carriers at the bottom end of the scale to make a living wage. You cannot do that on $25 an hour. You look up any national average, it will tell you that the average for a living wage is $30 an hour. That's what our people need to make. And we're not going to get there by getting 1 point something. By the time we get there, the living wage will be $40 an hour.
Yeah. Well, to me, and again, Charlie, I've never dealt with national level negotiations of that sort, and I could be foolish. But to me, I'm going to sit at that table on day one and say, my carriers are going to get at least a 2.5% raise, or we're going to go to arbitration to survive.
It got to be 2.5% a year, and
Yes.
Straight up cola for everybody.
Yes.
That's criminal. We have a diet cola out there, and the APW doesn't. We're supposed to be paid more than they are.
Right.
The colas are most important for the people at the bottom end of the pay scale because they're the ones that are harmed the most by increases in the cost of living.
Yeah, I would just sit. I would have sat down on day one and say, "Hey, look, I know y'all got y'all's issues, but it's going to be instead of 1.3, it's going to be 2.5. We can't do it. I'll see you in arbitration."
We can't worry about the post office. We got to worry about letter carriers. That's our mission. Is to take care of our craft, to take care of NALC members. The Postal Service has the ability to take care of itself.
Yes. Yeah, call me crazy, but I don't give a fuck what they do. I don't. If they were in that bad a shape, Charlie, Congress would be involved, telling them to fix their shit, and we're going to fix it for you. They're not interested in it. If they're not interested in it, why should I be? You can continue to say you lose all these billions. I'm going to get in them books. I'm going to see where it's going. I would go out and get the NBA or NFL or Major League Baseball, get their people that look in those books to get these exorbitant salaries for their people. I don't care if a baseball player makes $400 million a year. Somebody has looked in those books and said, this is what y'all make. This is what y'all can pay these players. I would get them and I'd say, we're going to pay you however much you want us to pay you. What is your going rate? This. I want you to get in these books. I want you to find this money. They made 78. They spent 85. Where's it going? And let's get it from there. As soon as you start exposing that shit, you're going to see a 2.5 or higher. But I wouldn't have dropped down below a 2.5. They said 1.3. You know they didn't in 500 days. They weren't at like a 1.1, and it took 500 days to get to 1.3. And all that's bullshit to me. But I would have said, yeah.
He accepted their initial offer.
There's no doubt.
There's no doubt in my mind that their initial offer is the same thing that the APW got 3 years ago.
Yeah.
It's almost an identical agreement. The only difference is $1,000 on the top end. The agreement is almost identical. Look at it.
Look at their starting salary, 27. We were talking about exorbitant, an unprecedented, historic PA for everybody in our CCA's got $1 to 20. Hell, we can't even pay them 27. If we're so broke, how are you going to pay them 27 and pay us 20? You couldn't even pay us what you're paying them to start out. My man needs to go back
to. I should at least make what the APW makes.
You would think he needs to go back to negotiating 101. He's never been in arbitration. I think he's had one. So he doesn't understand that. You need to understand arbitration, to me, how to negotiate, because Tolino took him to school. That's all you can say. Tolino took this young boy to school, this young rookie to school. He thought he had some good language in there, even the Article 8 language that person called him out on, and the foolish response he had to that, talking about this 12 and 60. When it says
let me say something about this. That cap, the 1260 cap, represented the union's long-standing position with regard to overtime. Our union was founded 130 years ago on a principle of 8 hours work, meaning that the wages that you made in 8 hours should be sufficient to support yourself and your family. 8 hours of recreation and 8 hours of rest. That was the principle that our union was founded on. Today, our wages are so low that we have to take the cap off the overtime to allow people at the bottom end of the scale to work 12 and 16 hours a day just to survive. We're taking a giant step backwards by losing that cap. And what do we gain by that cap? We gain nothing. The only people that are protected to refuse overtime, if you read the language there, the only people who have that protection are the people who are not on any overtime list. If you're on any kind of overtime list, it doesn't apply to you. If they mandate you to work overtime, you have no choice to work overtime, whether it's 12 hours, whether it's 16 hours, whether it's 18 hours. That's what that means. And the only remedy behind that is the extra halftime. So for all the branches that did all that work to get progressive remedies on violations of 12 and 60, that's down the tubes, because the only thing you're going to end up getting is an extra halftime.
Here's the language. Here's the language, Charlie. And somebody called him out on it. And there was the misconception because when he first came out, if you remember, he said, we have protections now. If you don't want to work 12 and 60, you can refuse that work without discipline. And if you do want to work beyond 12 and 60, you can do so. You can volunteer to do so. So somebody called him out on this language. And here's the language. It says, work hour limits. As indicated in section 82D, full-time employees who are not on an overtime desired list or on the work assignment list who reach 11 and a half hours of work in a day or 60 hours of work in a service week shall not be subject to disciplinary action for terminating their tour of duty when these limits on hours of work are reached. So it's full-time employees who are not on an overtime desired list. What about, and so the guy's like, what about those that are on the ODL? They don't have those protections. And do you know what he said?
What's that? I wasn't in Houston.
It's an agreement. We have an agreement, like a verbal agreement that they're covered. I have somebody come on that will confirm that. It's a verbal agreement. And the guy's like, what? So he's put in this thing that only those that are not on the list have those protections of not being disciplined if they brought that mail back.
I've done literally. My first arbitration that I did was in 1988. I've literally done hundreds of rights arbitration cases, contract issues, discipline issues. And early on, I still remember to this day, I had an arbitrator named John Barker. And there was an issue about an agreement that was in place. And I was arguing that we had this verbal agreement. And Barker tells me, if you don't have it in writing, you don't have it.
Yeah.
And he ruled against us.
Yeah.
There ain't no sidebar agreements. What you agree to is what you put on paper. And if you're going to make a change to that, then you make a change to the language in the contract so there's no ambiguity and there's no dispute. That's a rookie there that would come to that agreement, or somebody that came to an agreement, know full well its intent, and he just went around lying to you.
Yeah.
So it's either a rookie mistake or a liar at work.
I remember JB when he first started the Formal A years ago. I kind of helped him. Now he, like I said, he's far surpassed me as far as Formal A. He's vicious. But when he first started, he walked into a lot of cases, and he calls me and he says, "Hey, got a problem." I said, "Yeah, what's up?" All these cases are on a verbal time limit extension. I said, "Brother, catch up on those. get those out of the way, and make sure we have everything in a written time limit extension through email. Don't have anything verbal ever. And so that's what he did. He caught up on all those cases, and they hit wet management with, "Hey, can't do that anymore. Got to have this written extension." That's rookie 101 shit. Saying
Yeah, it's just inexperience. I
it's
mean,
verbal.
it appears to me that the Postal Service advocate wrote, or the Postal Service negotiator wrote that provision because
Yes.
it's very specific, and it's, I mean, every I and every T is crossed and dotted on that only the people not on any overtime list have that protection.
Yeah.
If you're on any kind of list, and they did away with the 10-hour list.
Yeah.
So that means that you're available to unlimited amounts of overtime. And the only remedy for working beyond 12 hours is an extra half time.
Yeah. And that provision where, like you said, it opens it up. You can work as much as you want. That will cost us routes, Charlie. When you talk
Oh,
about
yeah.
you can work as long as you want, because you're going to have these small stations. Like you said, they're going to have that overtime to survive. They're going to need it. So if you have 2 routes and they're going to work 12, 16 hours a day, they're never going to put in a 271G for an overburden route, because they're going to volunteer every single day to work all of this overtime. You'll never see a 271G for those routes being overburdened. Management will make sure they're overburdened, say, "Hey, I'm going to make this route now. When we adjust this route, I'm going to make this route 12 hours, but you can have that time every single day." I'll take it. It's going to cost
They
us
won't have
routes.
to make they won't have to make people regular. They won't have to hire new people on. They can stay perpetually understaffed with this kind of language in the contract.
Yeah.
You have 2
Yeah.
people working 12 hours a day. That's 1 8-hour job.
Yes. Yes.
And
Yes.
if you have people constantly having to work 12 hours a day, that means you don't have enough assignments in that office. You have not hired enough people in that office.
Yeah.
The amount of the mandatory overtime that these offices are going through tells you that the routes aren't properly adjusted, A, and B, that they're understaffed. They don't have enough people in the office.
Yep. So that will cost us routes. It's another thing of him getting schooled. Management, I'm sure, was delighted to have that, because, like I said, now in these small stations and these old, miles and miles away from anybody else, that probably small single branches, they'll just work themselves to death. Never put in a 271G, never have an additional route, and they're probably loving that shit. Carriers will probably love it too, though, that want to work all that time, and good for them, but it'll cost us routes doing that.
Well, maybe initially they'll love it, but you can't work a career at 16 hours a day or 12 hours a day. I mean, it not only breaks your body down, but you have no home life.
No.
You miss work one day, and nobody really remembers it. But you miss your daughter's dance recital or your son's baseball game. They'll always remember that you're not there.
Yeah.
The only reason why you work is to support your family, to be there for your family and make their lives better. You're not there to make management's numbers.
Yeah.
You're there to support your family, and you should be able to do it on an 8-hour day.
Yeah.
It is against the very principles that this union was founded on to lift the 1260 limits on overtime.
Yeah. But hell, Charlie, when you don't pay them anything, I don't blame them. Fuck. I mean, you're paying them. They could go flip burgers for the amount that you're paying them. You almost force these poor people into working themselves to death because you can't even pay them a living wage in this. It's unlike anything I've ever seen. I never thought it would get to this. When I heard $20, Charlie, I'm thinking, I wish the CCAs would unite, get a podcast. Hell, I'll pay for it, and unite themselves and vote all this shit out, man, and put somebody in there that puts them first, makes them human. You're not treating us like humans if you're trying to tell me that I'm going to make $20 to do the same damn job that you got these old heads doing, even harder because you're working them to fucking death on Sundays, and you disrespect them like that? That's complete disrespect from your union boss, your union leader, your advocate. The complete disrespect for the CCA position. If I was the CCAs, I would unite and I would start my own damn movement. And I would get behind a ticket that says, hey, we're going to make you priority one, the CCA position. So
Well,
it
I
pissed me off
understand
when
the
I
need
saw
that
it.
people have to start unions, start movements within the union, reform movements.
Yeah.
And, I've heard you say several times in the past that you just can't believe that there's an organization called Build a Fighting NALC.
Yeah.
We were a fighting NALC at one time.
Yes.
I don't think that it may happen that the CCAs band together, but they shouldn't have to. You shouldn't have.
No.
We are. Renfro is not the union. 100 Indiana Avenue is not the union. The people who put on the blues every day and show up on the workroom floor, they're the union. We may have a failed leadership, but we don't have a failed union because people like you and James Henry and Tyler Vassar and numerous others are out there trying to change things. That's what a union does. They fight for change. So it's not the union that's failing them, it's their leadership. That's the bottom line. We are a strong union because we have the ability to make a change. And for those people who are trying to say that we're tearing down the union, no, we're building the union up, brother. All right.
Yeah.
You're tearing down the union because our people are getting a 1.3% increase who can't afford to work at the post office anymore. The primary reason why people went to work for the post office was the benefits. The cost of health care is so high, people are foregoing health care. If they buy a cheaper plan with the higher deductibles, they're facing bankruptcy.
Yeah.
They can't afford to put money away for retirement. Without TSP, that thrift savings plan is nothing. The annuity from thrift savings plan is minuscule. Those matching funds are all important in TSP. But let me ask you a bigger question. Why do we even have to pay health care premiums? That should be something the employer takes care of. $225 a pay period. Some people are even paying higher than that, but that's the union's health care cost. $225 per pay period for a family plan. That's preposterous. When tell me, you're clearing as a entry-level letter carrier, maybe $13.50, $13.25 a pay period, and $225 comes out for your health care. Union dues comes out not at table 2 wages, at table 1 wage. You're paying a table 1 union due wage. Where do you get the money to put away for TSP when you can't pay the rent? Where you got to go to the county and apply for welfare to get renter's assistance, or to get a CalFresh card to pay for groceries. That's the reform movement. That's what the NALC is about, to make life better. Some people have lost sight of what we should be. That whole thing about taking the 1260 off, that's the telltale sign right there, where you want to enslave generations after generations of people to working at 12 and 16 hours a day just to support their families. 8 hours of work, 8 hours of recreation, and 8 hours of rest. That's what this union was founded on, and those principles should apply today.
We've lost our way, brother. And when you hear these stories out of Houston, people getting up there and are not happy and wanting answers. And you will have these puppets get up there, like the one that was saying, hey, we're being divisive. Y'all are being divisive, and, not taking this TA. In other words, y'all should have taken this plate of shit that they gave you and just eaten it. But you're bitching about having to eat a plate of shit. Y'all being divisive in this union because people are fed the fuck up with the lack of representation from the top. I've been crying that for a long time, that we have been abandoned on this workroom floor. This TA, Exhibit A, of us being abandoned on this workroom floor. But you'll have those people, those lackeys, get up there. Y'all are just being divisive. Y'all should just take this tentative agreement like the guy from Atlanta when they were down there at that other meeting, saying, "Hey, be thankful that we have a TA. Be thankful that they gave us this. They gave it. They didn't give us shit. I earned everything. I earned everything that I get. They didn't give me a fucking thing. I've earned it, and much, much more. But that's where we're at as far as this union. We're at a crossroads at this union, Charlie. It's either going to be status quo, or you're going to put people in place that are putting the letter carrier first, telling the post office to take that 1.3% and shove it up their ass and fight for the city letter carrier, or you're going to have status quo. It's one or two options. You're going to put the city letter carrier first, put people in place that are going to tell the post office to fuck off, or you're going to have status quo. You're going to have people continue to be in this same role with this same bitch ass negotiating tactics and fuck the letter carrier. That's where we're at. That's the crossroads we're at right now.
Well, I got to tell you, I'm a union man through and through.
No doubt.
I have 45 years invested in this union.
Let me give you that,
I
bro.
I believe in letter carriers and our cause. Now, I know my entire career I have had to face people who have lost their way, who have forgotten the basic principles of what a union's all about. And from time to time, it's up to us to put the union back on track. It's up to the rank and file to do that. All right? We're not a cult. For those people who are worried about if saying no is something wrong or questioning leadership, they don't belong to a union. They belong to a cult. A union, you can have vigorous disagreements within the organization. That doesn't tear it apart. It builds it up because we hash it out and we figure out what's the right direction to go. And we work to doing the right thing. You know, I see on social media, and it's really sad to me, about people, you know, talking about leaving the union and all that other stuff. I beg you, don't leave. Fight.
Yeah.
Fight back. Your vote is important. When that ballot comes out for the ratification of this contract, turn it around that very day. I'm recommending to vote no on it. I beseech you to do that, but vote. Only 15% of our membership voted in the last election. That means 230,000 people did not vote. You want your voice heard? That 230,000 needs to turn around and put this vote out. If you believe that this is the right way to go, then vote yes. If you believe that this is the wrong way to go, then vote no, but vote. Show people that the rank and file have a say in this. You know, the CLC uses the image of a lion. And it's not to say that, you know, they're stronger than everybody else or anything like that. It's the voice of a lion. When a lion roars, everybody hears it. When the membership gets up and they cast their ballots in droves, and instead of having 15%, we have 60, 70, 80, 90% vote, that's sending a message. That's strength. But 15%, they take you for granted. They think you're weak. They believe you're weak because you're apathetic. They think they can do anything that they want. You know, part of the leadership's problem here with this contract is that they came out with a set of numbers. And every time they talk about the numbers, another set of numbers comes up. And now they put out a wage calculator on the NALC website, and the wage calculator conflicts with the numbers that the president's putting out. You just don't know what the truth is. There's only one way to judge the truth, and that's by your own personal experience. Did the 4.8% increase last contract make life better for you? If the answer is no, then you know the 3.9% contract isn't going to do any better.
Well, the thing about that, Charlie, and the thing that pissed me off about that, not those numbers, is that he presents these numbers to the executive council before he told everybody about them, before he showed everybody what these numbers were. And so nobody from the executive council, allegedly nobody stood up and questioned him about it because they're seeing these numbers for the first time, just like we did, because they had no idea what was coming out because he didn't tell anybody anything. So they don't make any kind of, when I was telling, I asked Karen, I said, who stood the fuck up? And said, I'm not taking this shit out there to my people. Well, they don't know that he's misrepresented those numbers. And then you have this COP where these numbers come out. And people are getting up there kind of talking a little bit about it, but still they don't understand that he's inflated these numbers. Then you start hearing chatter, people saying, those numbers don't look right. You've misrepresented these numbers, these raises that you've been telling us. Those numbers don't look right. Then you have people start deep diving into those numbers. And they say, no wonder they're not right. You've added the COLAs, a projected COLA. You've added our steps. I'm surprised they didn't send out pamphlets asking us, how much tips do y'all get at Christmas off your route? We're going to include that in your rates too. You know what I'm saying? Anything we can put in there, we're putting in there. And so people start seeing you've bullshitted us here. You've put out these numbers that are false. If that doesn't tell you he understands how shitty this TA is, that you have to lie to the members about the raises that they're getting by misrepresenting these charts that he's putting out, that tells you he understands how shitty it is. But he's putting things in our fucking raises that he didn't negotiate. Potential COLAs, what they think they may be. He put that in there. Step increases, knowing that they can't put that in there. He put those in there. And so, and then he gets to this in Houston, and he refuses to let any member of the executive council vote on it or talk about it. Nobody can go up to the mic and talk about it from the executive council. Well, why are you bringing everybody from the executive council to these meetings then? If you're not going to let them speak out about it, are they there as props?
That's it.
I mean, all of that is bizarre.
Wrap.
It's completely bizarre that you're going to take the entire executive council to these rap sessions, these informational rap sessions about the TA. They cannot get up and speak against it. He'll cut the mic off on them. The first time they saw it, when they had an opportunity to address it, they didn't know what they were looking at. This is the first time they saw it. So they couldn't speak out against it. Now that you see, now that you hear all that, he falsified the numbers that he presented to us so that we would buy that shit. Dude's just dishonest, man. And that's the reason he knows that this TA is a bunch of shit, is because he had to lie to us about what we were making,
Although that it's not required by the NELC Constitution. Every contract in my 45 years of being involved with this union, except this one, you had something in the NELC bulletin that said the executive council unanimously recommends approval.
Yeah.
The fact of the matter is, Renfro knew that he could not get the unanimous approval of the TA. It's unprecedented. Never in the history of the NALC has it been necessary for a national president to have a road show and try to convince people that this is a good deal. I was shocked to hear that only 80 to 100 people showed up in Houston.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it?
I mean, something that's as important as this. That tells me that at least in one area of the country, people already have their mind made up. So I'm anxious to see what occurs in San Francisco come up this weekend. And I'm flying out to Minneapolis to visit the folks out there and see what goes on with that, with the the contract there.
Yeah, you got some hellraisers in Minneapolis now.
Well, we shall see.
Yeah, yeah, I can't wait to hear about it. But
We shall see. It's their contract. It's their decision to make. You know, I don't get a vote. I can give advice. I can tell you the history. But you know, when we started ratifying contracts with the two-tier wage system, we lost our way.
yeah,
We're ready to go out on strike over the COLAs. We rejected a contract in 1978 that put a cap on the COLAs. We refused to accept that. We went to arbitration and we won. We got a nice pay increase and we didn't end up with a diet cola. So, you know, the people who need the cola the most are the people on the bottom end of the contract. You're going to make it a diet cola. You know, I don't have anything against the people at the top, but it should be the other way around.
yeah,
Especially when the people at the top are making $30,000 a year more than the people at the bottom. And I'm not talking about the CCAs. I'm talking about career carriers.
yeah,
But a CCA is a union member, and they deserve to make a living wage. A person at the entry-level step of being a letter carrier, career letter carrier, deserves a living wage. I'm not saying that they deserve the same wage as the people at the top, but they deserve a fair wage. Because remember, well, I told you that there was only a $3,000 difference between bottom and top salary when I went to work for the post office. And we were a much more united and together union in those days. We didn't have arguments about generational issues. We didn't say, well, it's the old timers' problem and the young people don't understand and all this other stuff that goes on in the union today. We were united. That's the only way we're going to be. You have a lot of people in my very same position that support the, voting this contract down because it doesn't do justice to all letter carriers.
well, brother, I'm
And
gonna
the
have
only
you back.
really disappointing thing I'll share with you
Yeah,
is that some of the people that I've known in this union for years, I mean, not just a year or two, but I'm talking 20 and 30 years. Some people I had a great amount of respect for
yeah,
are sitting, not as either remaining silent when they know better, or they're going along with Renfro when they know it's wrong. Some of those guys have been up at headquarters for so long. It's analogous. They're like they're still wearing their high school varsity jackets and talking about the big football game 30 years ago.
right.
You know, they ain't done squat in the past 30 years. And they tell you, well, I'm up there to make sure things go right. Well, brother, things ain't going right. It's time to stand up. All you executive board members there, it's time to stand up. Remaining silent is a yes vote in my book.
Yep.
So if you're on that e-board and you're listening to this podcast, we're going to call you out.
Yep.
Do the right thing.
Well, I couldn't agree more, brother. I've been calling them out for a while. Yeah, because my union is not representing carriers any longer, and it pisses me off, man. And I cannot wait to
Your union is the people in the CLC. It's people in there, the BFN. It's all these other opposition groups out there that are forming and working to make things right in the union.
Yep.
Your union is the rank and file, the people who put on the blues every day. Don't ever forget that. The leadership of this union is not the union. They'll fail. They'll do all kinds of things. Sometimes they're corrupt and whatever. They are not the union. 100 Indiana Avenue is not the union. That building is not the union. The people in this organization that band together to create a better life for each other, that's the union, and those are the people that we're fighting for.
Well, a change is coming, brother. It can't get here fast enough, but it's coming.
We got to be the brokers of change. And Corey, I very much appreciate the work that you do, and how much you do care about the letter carriers out there. I sincerely believe that you do love everybody, with a few exceptions. But keep up the good work. You know you're the lightning rod that everyone listens to, and we'll make this union right. We'll work and turn this place around. We have to, because there's nobody else out there that's going to take care of us. No. We're letter carriers. Nobody else out there understands what we go through every day. The things that we do that are expected of us on the workroom floor, the trials and tribulations that we have. Too many people have been too long divorced from that.
Yeah.
And they don't get it. So it's time that real rank and file movements start, and we start to make some changes. I mean, there are people that we probably should retain at the top levels, and you've seen them standing up and supporting the charges in Boston this last convention. I mean, some of that institutional knowledge is important to keep.
Yeah.
Most of most of the people up there, they don't stand up. They're not worthwhile keeping.
I agree. My brother, I'm gonna have you back on once all this these informational rap sessions are over with. I'm gonna have you back on, all right?
As long as the fight's on, I'm coming on. When we win and things turn around, you're never going to hear from me again. I'm gonna finish my retirement.
Your grandfather
right off into the sunset.
Your grandfathered into this podcast. Now you've got to make appearances. Everybody loves hearing from you. They always get some of my best comments after you come on. You can't abandon us like that.
Well, it's time for somebody else to step up. Well, somebody else to talk and tell people that, you know, they really believe in the union, and they really believe in them. They really believe in the things that we can do by banding together. I am confident that we can build this union back to where it was when I first started.
It'll be there, brother.
I came from the Marine Corps making my best year $9,000. Coming into the Postal Service making $17,000, $5,000 above the average U.S. wage at the time. Healthcare didn't cost anything at the time. I didn't have FERS, so there was no joint contributions. I had CSRS. But things have been on a slide for a little bit.
Yeah.
And every so often, you have to put things back on track. And we can do that.
We're going to.
I firmly believe that we can do that. And it's going to take people like you, and it's going to take some of the people that I've seen out there in the field, and people that are putting, you know, the heart and soul into this reform movement to make the change. I am so impressed with some of the people that I've got to meet along the way. It's been a great pleasure with working with Ricardo and Guzman out of Branch 70, working with Lewis out of Simpson out of Branch 132 in Dallas, Walt McGregor out of Michigan, Dave Grosskopf out of Buffalo, John Cruz out of the Bronx in New York. I'm sorry I'm going to have to break his heart again tonight because my Dodgers are going to win once again. We're there for you. There's a whole crew of people. We just added Bill Tribal on board. So we're gaining strength every day. We're going to be stronger. And right after the holidays, we're going to have an announcement that's going to knock everybody's socks off.
I agree.
So stand by. We've got 2 years of a hard campaigning to do. It's not going to be easy, but we're going to do what we can to win your vote. And we'll see you again.
I've told you the junkyard dogs are coming, and like you said, they're going to be surprised and shocked when they hear this ticket. And so I can't wait. And James Henry has got a lot of momentum right now, and I'm glad for the man. I think he's the anchor that we need right now to stop this shit. And I would not be supporting him so feverishly if I didn't think that was the case. But he's the anchor we need right now, and that steadfast man that we need in that position, and the integrity that we need. And so I'm excited, and I can't wait for him to be able to make his announcement, and then we'll keep going from there, my man. How's that sound?
Let me tell you a little something about James Henry.
Come on.
I've known James for 35 years. James came out of Pomona, California. He was shop steward there. They have 2 stations, about 225 carriers all told in the city. And he was a premier steward, well respected by the people in his office. He was an area steward for me, worked diligently. As an area steward in our branch, you had to work 2 of your non-scheduled days a month for the union. For that, you got a small stipend. Then he became one of the first Step B members. From there, he came onto our executive board, became one of my full-time officers. I was the president of the Branch 1100. And every day, James would be out in the stations, talking to people, taking care of problems, fixing issues, making sure grievances were appealed timely and getting them resolved in a timely manner. He was so talented that after 9/11, he was called up to active duty with the Marine Corps for 3 years. And while he was gone, we had a branch election. He hadn't been around for 2 years, and he got reelected by acclamation. That's how well respected the guy was. He eventually got snapped up by Chris Jackson, who was our MBA at the time and made an RAA, and brought up by President Rolando as a vice president when the VP of the NALC retired at the time. So I know James, I know his heart, I know his family, I know what he's been through. I know the trials and tribulations that he's had. I was his advocate in arbitration when he got fired, and I'm proud of the man. I think that he's truly he represents exactly what he says he is. And if you want honesty from someone, if you want somebody with integrity, if you want somebody that will work in your interest, that's James Henry.
Yeah.
I have all the respect in the world for the guy, and you know, I'm proud to say that I got to work with him as you know, fellow brothers in the struggle at the local level. It's where you hone your skills is at the local level. It's where you get understanding and appreciation for what letter carriers go through. You know, Branch 1100 has like 175 different offices. We go from, I'll brag a minute. We go from Vista and Oceanside in the south all the way up to Malibu in the north on California. We go as far out as Mentone towards the desert. So there used to be a news announcer that would say from the desert to the sea to all of Southern California. Well, that's Branch 1100. And vast territories to cover. And James was really one of the people that I could depend on. I had a good crew of people. I respect everybody that that I worked with. But James was really somebody special. So, Corey, thank you for having me. I hope I didn't bore you.
No, sir. No, sir. We got some shit out of the way. I love you, Charlie, man, and I'm better because I've met you. And your passion for the city letter carrier, it's attractive. And it's same thing with James. You know, when James Henry calls me, he'll call me every so often, and he's talking about what we're going to start doing day one, his game plan, and gets me fired the fuck up, man. I'm like, damn it, let's start Monday, you know? And so he has his game plan, how we're going to disseminate that plan nationwide, what we're going to do as far as protecting the city letter carrier. He's all about that business when I keep talking about that. I can't fucking wait. And so I don't get many people that get me fired up, but both of y'all do. Your passion, man, for the city letter carrier, I love it, brother, and I love you. And so I'm gonna have you on as soon as all this shit's over with, and we'll talk about it again. All right.
All right, brother. You take care.
All right,
Go
Charlie. We'll see.
Dodgers.
Well, I won't tell Cruz. I won't tell Cruz that. All right, brother. We'll see you, man.
Bye.